Delaware. First, market study and concept. Delaware is small, but it isn't simple. The absence of a state sales tax draws in shoppers and diners from neighboring Pennsylvania and Maryland, especially around Wilmington. The catchment area benefits from that cross-border traffic, along with a corporate base tied to the state's business-friendly incorporation laws. The offer works well as a solid mid-to-upper concept in Wilmington, where the corporate lunch crowd has both the budget and the appetite for it, while coastal towns like Rehoboth Beach support a more seasonal, tourist-driven version of the same idea. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch in Wilmington means competing for a limited number of strong commercial corridors in a genuinely small city. Buying a beach town restaurant can be attractive specifically because of the seasonal revenue spike, but that same seasonality is the risk. A slow winter can erase a strong summer's margin if the financial model doesn't plan for it. The financial focus in Delaware needs a clear-eyed view of seasonality, whether the location is coastal or not. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Delaware Division of Public Health and the liquor license through the Delaware Alcoholic Beverage Control Commissioner, a smaller regulatory body than in bigger states, which can mean a faster process, but also less predictability simply because fewer applications move through it. Facility compliance follows standard food service code. Noise regulation for a bar in a beach town is often stricter in season than off-season, tied to tourism management ordinances rather than a fixed year-round rule. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan has to model two different revenue realities if the location is coastal, a strong season and a weak one rather than a single averaged year. Working capital needs to be built specifically to survive the off-season, without the restaurant becoming a liability the other 9 months of the year. Moving to Florida. Florida. First, market study and concept. Florida is a genuinely huge and varied market. Miami's sushi scene competes with the biggest cities in the country, while smaller markets like Tallahassee or Fort Myers are far less saturated. The catchment area in Miami skews international and design-conscious, rewarding a concept with strong visual identity as much as strong food. Elsewhere in the state, a more straightforward neighborhood concept performs just as well without needing the same level of spectacle. The offer needs to match the market, high concept and premium priced in South Florida, approachable and value-driven almost everywhere else. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch in Miami means competing for real estate against some of the most design-forward restaurant concepts in the country, which pushes build-out costs up considerably. Buying in a smaller Florida market can be a genuinely efficient path to profitability, since competition is thinner and real estate is cheaper. The downside in Miami specifically is a churn rate. Restaurants open and close quickly in the most competitive corridors, which makes due diligence on any acquisition especially important. The financial focus has to reflect just how different the cost structure is between South Florida and the rest of the state. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulations Division of Hotels and Restaurants, and the liquor license through the Florida Division of Alcoholic Beverages and Tobacco, a process that includes different license types depending on seating capacity and business model, which trips up a lot of first-time owners who assume one license fits all. Facility compliance follows the state food code, with hurricane-related building and utility requirements adding a layer most other states don't have. Noise regulation for a bar varies heavily by county and city, and Miami-Dade in particular enforces it strictly in mixed-use entertainment districts. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan needs to include hurricane season contingencies, insurance costs, and potential closure days that a colder climate state simply doesn't have to model. Working capital needs a buffer for exactly that risk, on top of the standard ramp-up period. On to Georgia. Georgia. First, market study and concept. Georgia's sushi market centers heavily on Atlanta, which has grown into a genuinely serious dining city over the past decade, with a diverse, food-curious population and real disposable income in its northern suburbs. The catchment area in neighborhoods like Buckhead or Midtown supports a premium concept, while the outer suburbs support a more accessible, family-friendly version of the same idea. The offer needs a clear identity in a city that already has strong sushi options. This isn't an underserved market anymore, so differentiation matters. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch allows an owner to plant a flag in one of Atlanta's growing corridors before it's fully built out. Buying an established restaurant in a proven neighborhood can shortcut the years it typically takes to build a following in a competitive metro. The downside of building is the time and marketing spend needed to get noticed in a city with no shortage of dining options. The financial focus needs to account for a competitive labor market, where experienced kitchen staff have options across a genuinely large hospitality industry. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Georgia Department of Public Health via the local county health department, and the liquor license through the Georgia Department of Revenue's Alcohol and Tobacco Division, layered with a separate local license from the city or county. Facility compliance follows standard sanitary code. Noise regulation for a bar concept is set locally, and Atlanta's entertainment districts carry specific ordinances that are worth checking before signing a lease rather than after. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan needs to reflect Atlanta's rising commercial rents, particularly in the neighborhoods with the strongest foot traffic. Working capital needs to support a longer runway to build brand recognition in a market that already has established competitors. Now, Hawaii. Hawaii. First, market study and concept. Hawaii might be the most naturally aligned state on this entire list for a sushi concept: proximity to Japan, a long-standing cultural connection to Japanese cuisine, and access to genuinely exceptional local fish. The catchment area in Honolulu blends a large local customer base with a constant flow of tourists who specifically seek out sushi as part of the destination experience. The offer can lean into that authenticity story in a way almost no other state can credibly claim, supporting a premium price point without it feeling forced. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch lets an owner fully lean into the authenticity narrative with a custom concept. Buying an established restaurant, especially one with tourist district foot traffic already in place, can be a faster path to profitability given how much of Hawaii's dining revenue depends on visitor volume rather than slow, organic local growth. The downside of both paths is the same. Hawaii's real estate and shipping costs are among the highest in the country, driven by its island geography. The financial focus has to account for that geography as a permanent, structural cost rather than a temporary one. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Hawaii Department of Health and the liquor license through the County Liquor Commission. Each island handles this separately rather than through a single statewide body. Facility compliance includes strict handling requirements for raw fish, reflecting the state's reliance on it as a dietary staple. Noise regulation for a bar concept is enforced by county, and tourist district zones often carry different rules than residential adjacent ones. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan needs to account for shipping and import costs on any non-local ingredient, plus real estate costs shaped by the state's limited developable land. Working capital needs to be substantial, reflecting Hawaii's position as one of the more expensive states on this entire list to operate in. Next, Idaho. Idaho. First, market study and concept. Idaho is genuinely underserved outside of Boise, which creates real opportunity for a first-mover concept in a smaller city willing to support a single strong restaurant rather than competing against a dozen. The catchment area in Boise benefits from a growing tech and outdoor recreation population that's relocated from more expensive West Coast markets, bringing higher expectations and higher spending power with them. The offer works best as a solid, well-executed mid-to-upper concept. Boise's newer residents are used to better sushi than the market has historically offered, and closing that gap is the opportunity. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch in Boise means capturing a genuinely growing population before the market catches up to demand. Buying is a less common path here simply because the pool of existing sushi restaurants is small. The downside of building is the education curve for parts of the customer base less familiar with a more elevated sushi concept. The financial focus benefits from real estate and labor costs that remain well below West Coast levels, even as the city grows. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare via local health districts, and the liquor license through the Idaho State Police Alcohol Beverage Control Division, a process that includes quota-based liquor licenses in some counties, which can mean a wait or a resale market for licenses rather than a straightforward application. Facility compliance follows standard code. Noise regulation for a bar in Boise is set municipally, with stricter enforcement downtown than in the outer suburbs. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan should reflect a genuinely favorable cost environment relative to comparable West Coast markets. Working capital can be more moderate here, though the liquor license quota system, if it applies, needs its own line item and its own timeline built into the plan. That's the next 6 states: Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, and Idaho. Say the word and I'll keep going with the next batch. Illinois. First, market study and concept. Illinois means Chicago for practical purposes, and Chicago is a serious, competitive sushi market with everything from high-end omakase counters to fast casual roll shops. The catchment area splits sharply by neighborhood. The Loop and River North support a premium, business dinner concept, while neighborhoods like Wicker Park or Logan Square reward something more casual and creative. The offer needs to pick a lane clearly, because Chicago diners are used to specialization rather than a restaurant trying to be everything at once. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch allows a concept to plant itself in a specific neighborhood identity, which matters in a city this segmented. Buying an existing restaurant with an established lease in a strong corridor can save years of brand building, especially downtown where new leases are expensive and competitive. The downside of building is Chicago's genuinely brutal winters, which suppress foot traffic for several months a year, regardless of concept quality. The financial focus needs to account for that seasonal dip as a planned, recurring event rather than a surprise. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Chicago Department of Public Health for city locations, or the relevant county health department elsewhere in the state, and the liquor license through both a state license from the Illinois Liquor Control Commission and a separate local license from the city or county, a 2-layer process that trips up owners who only budget for one. Facility compliance follows standard sanitary code. Noise regulation for a bar in Chicago is enforced by the city, with entertainment districts carrying different rules than residential-adjacent commercial strips. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan needs to model the winter slowdown explicitly, with a cash reserve built to carry the restaurant through the leanest months. Working capital needs to be sized for both the seasonal dip and Chicago's genuinely high commercial rents downtown. Next, Indiana. First, market study and concept. Indiana's sushi market centers on Indianapolis, with a much thinner scene than its Midwest neighbors like Chicago. That thinness is the opportunity. A well-run concept in Indianapolis doesn't have to fight for attention the way it would 2 states over. The catchment area benefits from a downtown revitalization that's brought younger residents and more disposable income into the city core. The offer works best as an accessible, quality-forward concept. Indianapolis diners respond well to value that doesn't feel like a compromise. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch lets an owner capture downtown Indianapolis's growth directly. Buying is less common here simply because the existing restaurant pool is small, though a suburban location with an established base can still be worth considering. The downside of building is a smaller sushi-literate customer base than in bigger markets, meaning some early menu education is part of the job. The financial focus benefits from Indiana's genuinely low cost of doing business relative to most of this list. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Indiana State Department of Health via local health departments, and the liquor license through the Indiana Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, a system that includes a quota on certain license types by county, similar to Idaho's, which can mean sourcing a license on a resale basis rather than applying fresh. Facility compliance follows standard code. Noise regulation for a bar is set locally, with downtown Indianapolis carrying its own entertainment district rules. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan benefits from lower real estate and labor costs than most states on this list. Working capital should specifically account for the liquor license situation if it applies, since that alone can add real time and cost to opening. Moving to Iowa. Iowa. First, market study and concept. Iowa is a genuinely small sushi market, concentrated mostly in Des Moines and around the university towns of Iowa City and Ames. The catchment area in Des Moines benefits from a stable insurance industry economic base, giving the city more disposable income than its size would suggest. The offer works best as a solid, well-executed concept without excessive complexity. Iowa's dining culture rewards consistency and value over spectacle. Second, build or buy. Building from scratch is the more common path simply because there are few existing sushi restaurants to acquire. Buying, where possible, often means acquiring a restaurant near one of the university campuses with a built-in student customer base. The downside of building is a slower path to profitability in a market where sushi isn't yet a weekly habit for most residents. The financial focus benefits from some of the lowest real estate and labor costs anywhere on this list. Third, legal and regulatory. Permits run through the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals, and the liquor license through the Iowa Alcoholic Beverages Division, with an additional local license from the city or county. Facility compliance follows standard code. Noise regulation for a bar near a university campus can be stricter than the rest of the city, driven by student housing proximity ordinances. Fourth, financial engineering. The business plan should reflect Iowa's low-cost environment as a genuine structural advantage. Working capital can be more modest here than almost anywhere else on this list, though the ramp-up period to build sushi-specific demand may run longer than the national average.